Deathstalkers. All right, let me get these. Okay, so Deathstalkers, Utgar is the general. They're Solborg, Common Squad, Deathstalkers, Wild, Large 5. There's 3 of them, got 1 life. Got a move of 7, range of 1, attack of 3, defense of 5, 100 points. They have 1 ability called Maul, which is when rolling attack dice against a small or medium figure. If a Deathstalker rolls a skull on every die, the defending figure receives a wound for every skull and cannot roll any defense dice. So this is basically a lucky all dice roll. But with 3, I mean, if you just have a regular 3 attack dice, it is, I guess, possible for that. But very, very tricky. And let's see here. We'll get into synergies in a second. But yeah, when it comes to these, I mean, I actually have like 3 or 4 squads worth of these guys. I've never used them before. But what do you guys think about this? I know they're not like competitively wise, they're not used very often.
So aesthetically, these are one of the coolest looking units in the whole game. Oh, yeah. They look so cool. It makes you wish that they weren't so bad. Yes. It probably one of the hardest power to use in the game because it only works on heroes. It only works on small and medium heroes. Oh yeah, you're right. I guess it works on any figures, well, actually, but
any small or medium figure. Yeah.
Medium figure, but really, if you can't roll defense dice, if you roll, it's okay. It's just like you really have to use these guys specifically against high defense figures. Mm-hmm. If there was like a hero they had that like reduced their defense, their attack die, then there might be a lot more interesting. But as is now, they work as a consistent, fast-moving squad. I wish they had disengaged. If they had disengaged, they'd be a lot more fun to play, I think.
Mm-hmm. And I will go to, because I was talking about these guys with Joe a little bit, and for C3V, there are some options with bonding. Yeah. And that's nothing, they're Common Squad, they don't really bond with anybody, but I think who is it with? It's with Death Commander Mark III through C3V. It does have a synergy to where you can kind of use them together. So that might help with them. Also with Delta points, I think they're a little bit less. I think are they like 75 points with Delta points? I think.
Yeah, so that's where they're at now.
Yeah, makes them a little bit more viable.
They're really fun to play with the Executioner. Have them swarm a unit and just have the Executioner blow them all up. Mm-hmm. It is probably the most fun I've ever had playing them. I like them. They're almost... I wish they were less points so you could just have a squad of them as just kind of like a sturdy kind of filler. But as is, they're just kind of... They're hard to build an army around.
With Classic, I would agree. Although, again, they're so cool looking that I know I'm going to play them sometime. Most definitely. Nick, what do you think about these guys?
Yeah, I didn't know they were 75, so that's actually kind of cool because that's one of the biggest point drops.
Something around there. I'd have to double check that.
I just checked it. It's 75 a Delta.
Okay, yeah. So it's not bad.
Yeah, I was just not really familiar with that one, but that's cool because I think it's only like Templars and the Grok Riders that have more of a point drop than that. I don't know of very many more that have that big of a point drop, so that's pretty cool. But the first thing I ever knew of them, back when I was first getting stuff, the only wave I ever got from Walmart was Thora's Vengeance, which is what they come from, Wave 5. Mm-hmm. And they come with the Warriors of Ashra, and I think that was the first box I chose just because I thought they looked so cool. Yeah. Like what you were saying. They got pretty good. They got good defense, 5. They got 7 moves. So that's really good. Mm-hmm. But you can't really rely on the power like what you're saying. I mean, it's just there.
It's like a 20-sided die roll,
Yeah, so maybe you can go after a hero a little more than squads, but it just doesn't do a whole lot. So yeah, it's cooler if you can use some custom stuff with them, like C3V and whatnot. But I mean, they have good stats and they look cool for sure. But like you're saying, yeah, they're definitely not like a competitive thing unless you have like a certain group of figures that you're choosing from.
A really
and then
good
Delta
counter
helps,
to the Martin Hounds. Like, they kind of fix every weakness the Martin Hounds can do because they're sturdy and are immune to the Morrow Plague. But they're like a good counter pick for very specific things. Like if you have high defense armies and you just kind of need to rip through them with a bit of luck. Like, these guys are good Templar killer, not Templar, Sentinel killers. If you really just want to kind of rip through these like annoying things to kill. I've wanted to try them out with Zenithrax, that because Zenithrax is, her Vine Glyph can reduce attack, maybe risk going onto the glyph to have a chance to inflict more wounds.
Oh, yeah,
Interesting.
that's true. That's cool. That's a good way of thinking.
Yeah, and Vincent's saying in the
it's
chat,
also kinda nice that they're
bigger scale
large,
game, they're
then-
usable.
Oh.
So you need a lot of them. Well, that's a good thing they're a common squad, though. Yeah, I'm sorry, Nick, what were you saying?
I was also going to say it's just nice that they're large in general because that helps with avoiding some powers that other people use.
For sure, yeah, that is actually a point. Yep, for sure. And here, let me get into their character bio.
But yeah, it's nicer.
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, go ahead, Nick. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's nicer to. Sorry.
That's fine.
It's nicer to attack up with them rather than attack down because then you have that higher chance of getting all three, instead of try to go for all four. So if it is an uphill battle, they're good at that. They are fast enough to make it a downhill battle, but that's a perk in a way.
Agreed.
That's all I have to say.
You don't really want to buff their attack unless it's like a huge buff, because the mauls.
I always run these guys with Taylor and Fenn for the ultimate army.
But let me get
It could
into.
be really good with Raylan then, I guess.
Yeah. Let me get into the like some of the lore of the character bio of these guys, because there is a little bit here, and I'm sorry, even even on this screen, it's so hard to read this red. They need to change this. It just this red just bleeds, and this is one thing like they teach you in broadcasting school. I don't know about you, Josiah, when it comes to your film school, but they say never put bright red text on the screen because it just bleeds out and it just looks always terrible. At least that's what I was taught. But anyway, character bio. A shrill howl rings out through the night air. It sends a chill up the spine of a lone member of the 4th Massachusetts, who pulled guard duty for a small party of soldiers camped on the northern edge of Upper Bleakwood. The soldiers' eyes dart back and forth, frantically straining to see the source of the sound. A second howl, now louder, reverberates off his ears. The noise somehow as sad as it is frightening. Suddenly, in the space between the surrounding trees, a dozen pairs of eerie red eyes light up. The soldier jumps up to alert his troops, but his warning cries are cut short. The Deathstalkers have claimed another victim. These cold, uncaring creatures once had a will of their own. Some say you can still hear it in their howls, a cry of resistance to the circuits that now force them to do naught but search and destroy. Which is actually an interesting backstory, to them, because yes, they were once, physically animal, and they get like debaucherized. I don't know if there's much in the lore. We don't have Jeremy here tonight, but I wonder if there's any like how would I say, like any factories or something that just would take animals and turn them into soulborgs.
It's really fascinating. Like, are these Valhallan wolves or these wolves from Alpha Prime? Is the real question with these guys. Is like, where do they come? Are these animals native? It'd be kind of fun to see kind of these wolves unaltered for like another army idea, just kind of like the same thing. I do love the lore though. Have you ever used the Deathstalkers in any of your videos, Ryan?
No, although
I would love to hear your sound effect for that sad robotic wolf. How like that sounds so
yeah,
cool.
because you have to make
very...
it sound type of metallic, yet still have like a hint of the natural how.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, again, hint, hint. Next seasonal story arc is probably going to feature a lot of undead, or scary type. I mean, these aren't undead. They look undead. That's one thing that I always misconstrue. These look undead. But they're not. They're metallic. But still, they kind of freak me out. So they might. I could get them involved for sure.
Yeah.
With it. But have fun with these.
They're definitely a unit where the coolness is definitely. They're kind of like the. What's the Einar flag bearer? Hanamatoro. Right, like they look so cool, but like how often you can use them is definitely limited by specifics.
And I always hate the 5 defense dice. Because it never works out well. It never works out well. Okay, but yeah, synergy. Again, there's no synergies in class escape for these guys, which probably one of the reasons why you don't use. Although as a common squad, you could just use a bunch of them and see how they play out. You don't really need a hero. With them, just a bunch of wolves, and I mean but for like classic points, that means if you're dealing like in a competitive game that usually has like 430, that means you have 4 squads of these guys. Would they do a good job? I don't know, it'd be after something you have to test out, but probably not great. But again, synergy benefits, you have like Death Commander Mark III, Executioner 616 on C3V. But that's pretty much it. I mean, and as far as tiered options, actually Doc gives them the B. That's interesting. But the rest is just like C+. So not terrible, but definitely more of a lesser, I'm going to say mid-tier. It was like a little less than mid-tier.
They got good stats, like a good stat spread is really the best thing going for them.
Right.
But in terms, they're just not strong army builders, just because there's not a lot going on additionally with them.
Yeah.
I mean, they came with the Astra, like I was saying earlier. Astra are like 50 points for 3 figures. That's like half the points. And if you go Deathstalkers against Astra are going to wipe them out easy. So they just don't have a great strength to them. Like the Astra have super good strength against melee.
For sure.
I wish they had 1 or 2 attack. Then like that low attack would like play a strategy into it. Like I'm gonna fish for doubles or fish for that 2 skulls, and then it's kind of like a strategy. But with 3, it's really hard to like. What's the odds of that? Like 20% or something like that. All 3 skulls, so it's a little low.
I think you're right. I think a disengage on them would have probably boosted them a little bit more. If they had disengaged that I think that would have helped slightly.
At least they could zip around the map and hold glyphs and kind of use their sturdy defense and movement. But right now they run up to someone, they try to bite it, and if they don't succeed, then they're just kind of stuck there as a big blocking point.
Yeah, agreed. And it's here. Vincent in chat says, caution on the bridge map scenario. It's hard to move up, and there is no space for a double plate platform. I was a bit stuck with them. Yeah, and I think that's I guess in order to just, because we don't have to go on forever about these guys because there's really not too much to talk about, but to basically end it, looking at Deathstalkers, they're really aesthetically pleasing to look at, and I mean you could probably figure out like how to play them competitively, but more times, like 9 times out of 10 or 99 times out of 100, you're going to probably choose something else. But if you love Soulborg mechanical wolves and you just want them for your collection, please consider them. Deathstalkers.
They're still pretty cheap. You get a whole squad for $15 still.
There you go.
It's worth to have 1 squad in your collection,
At
just
least
because they look cool.
Absolutely.